Dear learners, I welcome you all to this video lecture. I am Dr. Kanchi Bajpai, an assistant professor, guest faculty, Pandit Sundarlal Sharma, Open University, Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. Before proceeding further, let's have a quick recap what we have already learned. We have already done with the course orientation of the history of English literature, under which I have gone through the traits of English literature and how to study a literary history. Second, I have already covered the age of Chaucer under Plague or Hundred Years' War. Now, this all are the historical background of the age of Chaucer. Now, in this topic, I will be covering age of Chaucer under the following topics, and these are the religious writings, ballad tradition, and Middle English culture. Now, let's begin with today's lecture. Under medieval English literature, which is also known as the age of Chaucer, we will be learning literature, culture, and society during the 14th century England. In this slide, I will be exploring Middle English culture, religious texts, and ballad tradition during the age of Chaucer. Now, chapter 1 is a historical context. What is the historical context? It means the introduction to the age of Chaucer. The years roughly spanning 1340 to 1400 mark one of the most turbulent and transformative periods in English history. Now, why it is most turbulent and transformative periods in English history? Because it was a time of plague, revolt. Revolt means 100 years war and profound cultural rebirth. Cultural rebirth basically means renaissance. England was shedding the long shadow of Norman French dominance because at that time London or England was broken into different fragments because of the French dominance, Anglo-Norman period, and forging a distinct national identity through its own vernacular literature. Vernacular here means native or local literature. Because of its own literature, England was creating its own identity during the Anglo-Norman period, which is the age of Chaucer. From the ashes of the feudal order, a new literary tradition was rising because one feudal system was destroying at that time. Because of its destruction, a new literary tradition was rising. Now, in next slide, I will be covering what is the feudal order and how a new literary tradition was rising and what was that literary tradition. In this slide, we can see what is the feudal system. That means three states. What are those three states and why? Because of the destruction of the feudal system, how and when new literary tradition was rising. Medieval society was basically based or rested on a rigid hierarchy, and that hierarchy is known as three estates. Three states is a framework. I have already given you a picture in this slide which shows the framework of the three states that governed every aspect of life from birth to death. Now, first, that is the clergy. Clergy means what? Clergy means those people who pray, like bishops, monks, friars. Now next is nobility. Nobility means what? Nobility means those people who fight like knights, lords, barons. Now third is peasantry. Peasantry means those people who work like serfs, farmers and laborers. Yet under the pressure of plague, war and commerce, because of all these things, plague was broken in that year. War was already happening like 100 years war. And because of the commerce, commerce means business, this ancient order began to fracture. It means this three states began in a destruction process. And because of that destruction process, a middle class of merchants, guildsmen, and tradespeople were rising, which led to the blurring of the boundaries between estates, helps in reshaping the social landscape that Chaucer would so vividly capture. In this picture, you can see what I'm saying. Now, Black Death, which was broken in the year 1348, plague. Now, first we will see what is Black Death. What is plague? Plague, which wiped out one third to half of the England's population in devastating waves. It was very destructive. It was very harmful. Now, economic upheaval, a massive labor shortage. Because of plague, there was labor shortage in a mass level, which empowered peasants to demand better wages and conditions. And because of that, peasants' movement also happened in that year. Crisis of faith, the dance macabre captured a society haunted by death and questioning the church's authority. Now, turmoil and rebellion, which covers the Hundred Years' War and the Peasants' Revolt. The Hundred Years' War, which was happened in the year 1337 to 1453, is a prolonged conflict with France that galvanized a growing sense of English nationalism and pride in the English tongue. Now, Peasants' Revolt, which was happened in the year 1381, just after the plague. Because of the economic upheaval, people were demanding wages, proper wages for their crops. It was led by Wat Tyler, this uprising against Pole. Now, chapter 2, language and identity, like the evolution of English language, how English language was evolved. First, it was Old English. Under Old English, it was because of the Anglo-Saxon roots and Germanic vocabulary. Both Anglo-Saxon roots and Germanic vocabulary together formed Old English. Now, second is Middle English, that is the triumph during the evolution of the English language, because law of language was established. East Midland dialect prevails at that time, and because of all these qualities, it was time of English language as Middle English. Third is the normal influence. When English language blended with French and Latin after 1066, means during the Anglo-Norman period. By that time, Chaucer wrote the East Midland dialect used in London's court and commerce had emerged as a foundation for what would become standard English. Now, chapter 3 is about Geoffrey Chaucer. Geoffrey Chaucer, also known as the father of English literature, born to prosperous wine merchant. Geoffrey Chaucer, born in the year 1343 and died in the year 1400, rose to become a courtier, diplomat, and civil servant, a life that gave him an unparalleled window into every spectrum of English society. His travels to France and Italy immersed him in the literary genius of Dante, Petrarch, influences he brilliantly wove into English vernacular. His supreme legacy, proving that English could serve as a medium for the highest literary art. That's why he is known as father of English literature, because he has given very much to English language, and because of his contribution to English language and English literature, he is known as the father of English literature. Now, Chaucer's masterpiece work, The Canterbury Tales. The Canterbury Tales is a story of a diverse company of 30 pilgrims journeys to the shrine of Thomas Becket in Canterbury. Thomas Becket Shrine is located in a place named Canterbury. It's a journey of 30 pilgrims going to that shrine in a Canterbury, each one telling stories in a lively contest. There was a contest happening there. They all thought that we are going into a journey, so we should tell each other stories, and after end of the journey we will decide who is the winner. This ingenious frame narrative, a story containing stories. It's a beautiful masterpiece work. The narration is a story containing stories. It is a story inside a story. Allowed Chaucer to weave together genres from chivalric romance and bawdy fabuleux to moral sermon and saints' legends. These all are the themes of the Canterbury Tales. Now, why Canterbury Tales is a social commentary? Because a cross section of society, it represents every class except the highest royalty and lowest serfs, and unprecedented literary panorama. Now it is a sharp satire, gently but firmly critiques church corruption through figures like the pardoner and the monk, while celebrating the emerging middle class. Vivid realism, characters are multidimensional, flawed, and deeply human. The Wife of Bath remains one of literature's most unforgettable creations. Now, other major works by Chaucer, Ulysses and Cressida, it is often called first English psychological novel. It covers a tragic romance set during the Trojan War. The Book of the Duchess, another famous work by Geoffrey Chaucer, it's an early dream vision poem composed as moving elegy for a patron's beloved wife. Now, third work is The Parliament of Fowls, a charming dream vision exploring courtly love and nature through an assembly. Now, chapter 4 is about the religious writing, the state of the church. The Catholic Church was the dominant institution of medieval life, controlling education, law, and rhythms of daily existence. Yet, growing wealth, the scandal of pluralism, and the brazen selling of indulgence fueled widespread public disillusionment. Writers seized upon this crisis, some to defend the faith, others to demand reform. and still others to express profoundly personal encounters with the divine. Now, John Wycliffe and the Lollards. John Wycliffe is another famous writer of the age of Chaucer, born in the year 1320 and died in the year 1384. John Wycliffe was an Oxford theologian who boldly attacked the privileged status of the clergy. Wycliffe argued that the Bible, not the Pope, was the supreme authority in the Christian life. The first translation of the Bible into English was also initiated by Wycliffe. It is known as the Wycliffe Bible. It is a revolutionary act. What was the aim of that revolutionary act? That aimed to place God's word directly in the hands of common people, not through Pope. Now the Lollards. Lollards are whose followers spread proto-Protestant ideas across England. Though severely persecuted, they laid the groundwork for English Reformation over a century later. Now we will cover William Langland and his work Piers Plowman. William Langland is another celebrated author of the age of Chaucer. It is a contemporary of Chaucer, though far more obscure. William Langland composed one of the era's most ambitious literary works, and the name of that literary work is A Vision of the Piers Plowman. The Vision of the Piers Plowman is a sprawling allegorical dream vision poem. Allegorical means something which talks about morality that follows its narrator on a quest for the true Christian life. It harshly satirizes religious hypocrisy, corruption, friars, lazy clergy, worldly bishops, while remaining deeply orthodox in its underlying theology. Where Chaucer observed with urban wit, Langland raised with prophetic urgency. Now, chapter 5 is the female mystics, the rise of the female mystics. In a world where women were largely excluded from former religious hierarchies and education, mysticism mysticism is the experience of direct personal visions of God, offered a radical alternative. By claiming divine authority, women could bypass male clerical gatekeepers entirely. The result was some of the earliest and most poignant autobiographical writing in English language. Now, Julian of the Norwich, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manners of things shall be well. And Anachrist, a religious living in a cell attached to a church, Julian, experienced a series of severe illness and extraordinary vision in 1374. Her work, Revelations of Divine, is the first known book written by a woman. The work is a theology, which is an optimistic work emphasizing on love and boundless forgiveness. Now, the second woman is the Margaret Camp. Margaret Camp is a Borgia's wife and mother of 14, Margaret Camp, born in the year 1373 and died in the year 1438, experienced dramatic spiritual visions and uncontrollable whipping feats that scandalized her contemporaries. What she has written? She has written Dictated to Scribes. The book of Margaret Camp is considered the first autobiography in the English language. It chronicles her extensive pilgrimages across Europe and the Holy Land and her fierce struggle to live a highly visible spiritual life in a spectacle secular world. Now, chapter 6 is about the ballad tradition. The ballad tradition means the poetry of the people. While Chaucer wrote for the court, another literary tradition thrived among the common people. Chaucer was a courtier poet. He died for the court only. But what for the common people? So another literary tradition began that was for the common people only, and that was the ballad tradition. That is the poetry of the common people. That's why it is known as the poetry of the common people. The medieval ballad. What was the medieval ballad now? It is a narrative poem intended to be sung and passed down through oral tradition by anonymous authors. Anonymous authors means authors who wrote ballads of that time are unknown from lower classes and broader regions. This song served as the news, entertainment, and historical record for the illiterate mass. Now, what are the characteristics of the medieval ballad? First, ballad meter, alternating iambic tetrameter and trimeter lines with an A, B, C, B rhyme scheme. Second is incremental repetition, repeating phrases with slight modifications to build suspenses and emotional tensions. Third is abrupt dramatic style, action oriented with sudden transitions, minimal psychology, and often tragic or supernatural elements. Now, what were the popular themes of famous ballads and what are famous ballads of the age of Chaucer? The themes are unrequited and tragic love, domestic betrayal and murder, outlaw, folklore and resistance, historical ballads and heroism, ghost and supernatural. These all are the themes during the age of Chaucer of the ballads. Now, what are the classic examples of the famous ballads? First is the Robin Hood ballad. Robin Hood ballad is a legendary outlaw championing the poor against corrupt officials. Second is the Sir Patrick Spens, a gripping maritime tragedy of duty and doom. Third is Barbara Allen, a haunting tale of love denied and death's bitter harvest. The last is the Lord Randall. It's a chilling dialogue revealing murder. Now, in conclusion, I have to say about the legacy of the 14th century. First legacy of the 14th century of England was a tapestry of voices, from Chaucer's courtly wit to Langland's poetic rage to the Balladeer's raw song. An entire civilization found its voice. Second legacy is the English language. Cemented English as a rich, flexible, and permanent literary medium for centuries to come. Third is the bridge, the crucial link between the medieval worldview and the approaching brilliance of the Renaissance. Thank you all for joining me today. That's all for today's lecture. In my next lecture, I will be covering the knight's character written by Geoffrey Chaucer in his masterpiece work, The Canterbury Tales. Stay tuned for my next lecture. Thank you.